Alrighty. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're going to just give it a couple minutes so people can log on, and then we will get started. Oh, and my presenters, my apologies. I meant to add, occasionally if it echoes, if you're just not speaking, just turning off your volume usually, or muting yourself helps with that. It doesn't sound like it's been an issue, but just in case, just wanted to make sure for that. All right, we'll give it about 1 more minute and then we will get started for the interest of time. Make sure that give plenty of time for this presentation to get all that good information that you guys are going to hear. Alrighty. Well, we are going to get started. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, STAR Training, Effective Interviewing from the Oracle Recruiting Team. Most companies, including Oracle, use behavior-based interview techniques called the STAR method. The presenters will provide practical approaches on how to prepare for your interview and how to tackle tough questions and the follow-up questions. The presenters want you and your work or academic experience to shine in an interview to help you land the job offer. My name is Alexandra Walsh, and I am the coordinator of programs at the Tourette Association of America, and I will be your moderator for tonight's webinar. Before the webinar gets started, I want to share a little bit more about your presenters today. Melissa Nicholas is the Senior Manager of Global Diversity Recruiting at Oracle. Melissa brings 24 years of recruiting experience and is always passionate about finding pathways to opportunities for candidates from all backgrounds. Before getting into diversity recruiting, she led campus programs at technical and healthcare companies. More recently, Melissa supported international events recruiting at Amazon. It was at Amazon where she found her value in building diversity recruiting programs to get more women and URM candidates into technical roles. Melissa has been at Oracle for over 3 years and is excited for the potential with her amazing global team. She has spent most of her career in the Pacific Northwest, most recently moving to Bellevue, Washington with her husband and 2 bunnies. Rae Collins is the Campus Diversity Program Manager at Oracle. She joined Oracle in April of 2022 as a diversity program manager supporting the campus recruiting. Her main job and responsibilities include managing relationships and partnerships with historically Black colleges and universities and Hispanic serving institutions. She has over 9 years of HR experience, specializing in talent acquisition and diversity, equity, and inclusion within many industries spanning from technology, healthcare, to insurance. In 2019, her career transitioned from recruiting to focusing and specializing on DEI. Her passion for helping others break through corporate barriers led to her creation of several groundbreaking diversity programs in early talent divisions that have helped remove barriers. Raised in Lynn, Massachusetts, she is a first-generation college graduate from the University of Connecticut with a Bachelor's of Arts in Communications. She now resides in Houston, Texas, and enjoys traveling and trying new restaurants in her free time. Katie Coho, Diversity Recruiting Pathways Coordinator. Katie is a Pathways Program Coordinator at Oracle on the Global Diversity Recruiting Programs team. They joined Oracle in October of 2021 and have been enjoying their time working with Textio, an AI tool that uses language to make job postings language inclusive, 88 Developers Academy, Oracle Career Relaunch, and our events. Katie attended San Francisco State University 2 times and holds a Bachelor's of Arts degree in psychology and a Master's of Arts degree in education. Most of Katie's previous work includes higher education, student affairs, and teaching. As a friendly reminder to our attendees today, we have the ability to engage in a Q&A discussion at the end of the presentation by the Oracle team. So please feel free to place your questions in the chat. And with that being said, I am going to turn it over to the Oracle team for your amazing presentation. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Alexandra. So I'll just do a very quick kickoff and just to tell everybody. So thank you so much for joining us. As you've heard from our bios, you have a lot of years of experience and passion around interviewing and recruiting and hiring. And we're here to help you. That's our role in this webinar, is to help you be the best in your interview process. It's not easy. We all know that. And we want you to be prepared and supported and, you know, be at your best for the interviews itself. So with that, I do want to encourage you, like Alexandra said, please throw your questions in the chat. We will, at the end, we'll take our time and make sure that your specific questions are being addressed. We have a nice intimate group, so we're here for you. And with that, I won't belabor this much longer. I will hand it over to Rae.
Thank you, Melissa. You couldn't have started off any better. We're so excited to come to be here with you all today to bring this presentation, one of my favorite topics. I'm Rae Beyond, and also, if you have a moment, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always on there looking for new talent for Oracle. But I'm so excited to actually speak with you today, me and Katie both, in regards to bringing you interview preparation. Katie, do you want to say anything before I get started?
Hi, everyone. I'm Katie. I'm excited to be here with you all, and I am excited to listen to Rae tell us about interviewing with the STAR method.
All right. Thanks. Melissa, you go to the next slide. So before we get started today, I wanted to give you some insight on how we will conduct the presentation. So to get started, I will be discussing the basics of interviewing, taking a deeper dive into behavioral interviewing, then reviewing the STAR method. Then my colleague Katie and I will do a live mock interview demo for you all to see in action. Then we will close out with a post follow-up, some Oracle opportunities, go over those with you as well, and review some additional resources that will further add to your knowledge of this topic beyond this presentation. At the end, we will have some time aside to answer some questions. So as we go through the training, I just want to let you guys know, please go ahead and drop some questions in the chat. We can get those answers as we go through. So, all right, getting started. So I have been in talent acquisition for almost 10 years. My very first role out of college was a recruiter, and until this day, recruiting is very much embedded in my current role. So I've had my fair share of conducting hundreds of interviews on the professional side as well as in the college campus space. And one thing I've learned over the years is as an interviewer and as an interviewee is that interviewing is exciting. So I hope you guys are excited about this. Nothing beats the feeling of getting that email that you have been selected for an interview with someone from the hiring team. But right after that feeling of excitement comes all the Russian nerves and thoughts such as, oh my gosh, what if I don't do well? Or what if they don't like me? Or what if I don't get the job? Or what if I don't know the answer to the questions that they ask? Any of you ever had any of those thoughts? Because I know that I have when sitting on the side of the table as the interviewee. But guess what? That makes you human. Those thoughts and feelings are normal to have. Anything that you are excited about is going to be accompanied with a bit of nerves, but it's how to control those nerves. And with interviewing, you can control those nerves by always staying ready so you don't have to get ready. And when I say that, I mean understanding the basics of interviewing, and that includes these 5 P's that you see here. Whenever you are interviewing, remember the 5 P's of interviewing, which is preparing, practicing, presentation, punctuality, and post interview. As I go through this presentation, I will go more in depth of what each one of these mean, but remembering these 5 P's will be a game changer on your outlook of interviewing in the future. You can go to the next slide. So, starting off with preparing. Once you have secured your interview, it's time to prepare to ace it. You can do that by following some of these top tips when it comes to preparing for your interview day. So, starting off with re examining the job description. Before you applied, I know you already took time to glance over the job description for the role to ensure you qualified, but be sure to revisit that job description prior to your interview. Carefully examine it and understand the duties and role that you will be playing for the organization. This will also help you come up with any additional questions that you might have about the job. In addition, going to the next tip, it will help you understand why are you interviewing and what makes you qualified? Why did they choose you? When you're on the job market looking for next role, you apply to so many jobs that sometimes you forget what it is that you have applied for. So this step is crucial. In addition to understanding the role, you need to perform extensive research on the company as well. It's okay that you will not be an expert and know all the facts about a company when interviewing, but it is not okay to not know anything about the company you are interviewing with. It's the quickest way to show you're not prepared. Before the interview, make sure you have your resume also with you. This is good because sometimes our nerves get the best of us and you might forget all of your accolades, your accomplishments. So you can reference it during your interview or provide the interviewer with a copy of it if they don't have it on hand. Next, plan your interview day wisely. I cannot stress this one enough. When you get that call for the next steps and they are asking you to confirm a day and time, be sure to check your entire day that day before agreeing to a time. If you have a major event or something already scheduled, schedule your interview on a lighter day. You want to give yourself an opportunity to be at your very best and not stressed out dealing with a million things. Moving on, prepare thoughtful questions for your interviewer. Nothing shows you truly want the job and are prepared more than the questions you follow up with than having the right questions. The interview is a two-way street. They are interviewing you to make sure you are the best candidate, and you need to interview them back to make sure the company is a great fit for you and your professional goals. With the research that you will do of the role and company, you should be able to construct some well thought out questions for your interviewer. Moving on, practice your speaking voice and body language. You want to ensure you are presenting your best self and not second guessing anything once the interview is over. Practice speaking out loud with your friend or in the mirror to build up your confidence in yourself. The worst thing a candidate can do is show up to an interview, whether in person or on Zoom, and bring low energy, be timid, appear disinterested. So be mindful of those things because those are major. And lastly, consider your answers to common interview questions. Research some sample interview questions online to the role that you are interviewing for. Practice those questions by preparing answers for them so you can get an idea of questions you might get asked. because sometimes you don't know the type of interview they might conduct. So it's best to think ahead. You can go to the next slide, which brings me to my next P, practice. Practicing can help make perfect. The best way to ace an interview is to practice. But how do you know what to practice for? Well, I can tell you there are usually three main types of interviews: behavior, which focus on candidates' past experience to assess how they're navigated specific situations and utilize skills relevant to the position. Then there is case, which focuses on providing a candidate with hypothetical business problem where the candidate will have to solve that problem for the company. It gives some insight into a candidate's critical thinking and problem solving skills at a very high level. And then last, there's informational interviews. These interviews are more conversational, providing the candidate with information to the company, the job, career paths, the industry, and more. It's also a great networking tactic for a candidate to learn more about the company as well as the industry. Every company interviews process is different, but for the most part, majority of companies are utilizing one of these interview types. You can go to the next one. Here at Oracle, we use a mixture of all three of those interview types. And that is common at other companies depending on the type of roles you are applying to. So to give you some insight into our interview process, we have two lines of businesses that we recruit for in the campus space, and that is non-technical roles and technical interviews. For each line of business, the first stage is the same, which starts off with a pre-screen that is more behavioral and informational style. The recruiter would be providing information on the role, the company, the location, salary of the role to see if it's a good fit, and then would ask you some behavioral questions to understand how your past experiences further qualifies you. If that goes well, the second round is where it differs for each line of business. For non-technical, it would be a super day or an assessment day in which a candidate would interview with other candidates who have applied to the role. They would learn more about the job in greater detail, but also be provided a business case in which they will work on as a team to solve. Managers would assess them problem solving this problem. And so they will work as a team. Managers want to see, are they a leader? How do they contribute? And so on. And they will make their hiring decision off of that. For the technical side, candidates would receive a coding assessments to solve. If this goes well for candidates in both lines of business, they will be made an offer to onboard. But if you can't get past the first part, which is behavior interviewing, you won't get to the last part, which is getting an offer and onboarding. So let's discuss behavior interviewing in more detail. As stated earlier, behavior interviewing is used to assess your past experiences to determine your qualifications. It's used by many companies to help evaluate candidates' future performance. But what I love so much about behavior interviewing is it takes the hypothetical out of the conversation, which has so many benefits for the candidates. For instance, having you speak about your past experiences, it helps reduce bias in the hiring stages and allows you to showcase your strengths and experience. This is your time to speak about you. You only need to remember your experiences, and there is no right or wrong answer. How amazing is that? The question is direct questions that allows you to speak about your own personal experience, so there is no wrong answer. The interviewer does not have an answer sheet to say, you know what, they answered that wrong, but they are scoring you on different things throughout the interview. So that leaves you with more control in the interview as you get to tell your own personal experiences. You can go to the next slide. So if you're wondering, what does behavioral questions look like? Well, here you are. You can see here 4 examples of behavior interview questions. Starting with the first question, what do you do when priorities change quickly? Give one example of when this happened. Seems like a pretty easy question, right? And that is because it is, it really is. It's no trick. You literally just have to think about a time when you had to adapt and pivot in a professional or education situation and provide that example. But here's the tricky part, because there is of course a little trick in interviewing. You can't just give a short response to the question. You need to cover your bases. You need to tell a story and paint the picture for the interviewer. They should be able to envision what you are speaking about as you are speaking. And that goes for each one of these questions you see here. They are all asking about you and what did you do? How did you do it? And what was the end result? There is no right or wrong answer to these questions, but there is a method on how to answer them. So we're going to go over that method next. You can go to the next slide. So when it comes to answering the behavior interview questions, you have to remember to use what we call the STAR method. And this is universal. When you're doing any behavior interview with any company, always keep in mind the STAR method. Remembering this acronym will change your interviewing style forever and will get you better results overall. So let's take a moment to go over this acronym. The S is for describing the situation. And take a moment, while we're on this slide to write this down. I know we will be following up with some additional information so you can have this, but definitely you want to write this down. The S is describe the situation. So when you're providing the story in your interview, take a moment to process and think about what story you're going to use. But as you're telling that story to the recruiter, remember to describe the situation in great detail. It should leave no questions asked of where did this happen? Where was, what time frame was this? You got to describe the whole situation in detail. Task you had to carry out. Make sure you provide that in your response as well. Any task that you had to carry out to solve whatever problem you had to solve to get the end result that you were looking to get or receive, make sure that that is included in your story. Action is A. Action that you did to solve the problem. Make sure that you are, like I said, going into great detail about each part of the STAR method. So the situation, the task, the action at hand, where it leaves the recruiters no question in mind what was the whole story. So they should be listening to you as if they are listening to a movie. And then R, what happened as a result of your action? What was the end result? What was the outcome? Was it good? Was it bad? Either way, make sure that you tell them that without having them to ask. So when you are asked any question from Jump in an interview, using the STAR method is how you would answer the question in its entirety without having a recruiter having to follow up with additional questions. You can go to the next slide. And acing the STAR method. I know that was a lot of information. If you never seen or heard of the STAR method, your brain is probably like, wait, what? I was just answering these questions. I thought it was this way. Like, don't feel so overwhelmed. I promise you, it actually becomes easier when you remember the acronym. Because we use the STAR method because it provides a great framework or a simple checklist for the candidates and the interviewer. And it helps the candidates walk through their stories with ease and in a logical and clear manner. So here are some additional questions here for each of the STAR method. But before I go any further, I want to point out a main challenge that I see many college students experience when answering behavioral questions. Probably get stuck. I see as a recruiter, many students get stuck because when you ask, a question or tell me about a time where you experienced a setback, and some students think to themselves, I haven't had that experience. I don't have much work experience. Remember that there's an answer to every question because you just have to take a moment to think about it. Because you can use project experience when you work with the team in school, that your school experience is experience. You can use volunteer experience. You can use those situations as stories to tell. You just have to remember to break it down in the STAR method and it becomes easier. And for each one, you got to remember, like for instance, with the situation, the interviewer is going to ask about a challenge or a situation in which the candidate found themselves in and can ask questions such as what happened? How did this come about? Who was involved? What was the main issue? These are things that you need to keep in mind as you are telling your story. When it comes to tasks, keeping in mind, what was the responsibility that you take on to solve the problem? Did your manager assign this task to you? Did you take on tasks on your own? Did others have tasks as well? So as you are telling the story to the interviewer, keeping in mind those details that you might think that are not important but truly are important. Remember when I told you there's no right or wrong answer? And that's true. There is no right or wrong answer to your personal experience, but there is a right and wrong way to answer the question. If you leave out many details, it doesn't provide a full answer, completed answer to the question being asked. So that is how you can end up scoring a low score or getting the question wrong. Not your personal experience, but leaving out those small details. So keeping such things like that in mind. And now me and Katie, because I know I just gave you guys a lot of information, and you're probably like, I've been interviewing my whole life. I thought I was doing this right, and now I'm confused. But I promise you, like I said, practice makes perfect, one of the P's. So me and Katie are going to take some time. We are actually going to do a mock interview for you all so you can see this played out. All right. So I'm going to ask Katie some questions, and I'll go from there. Katie's going to answer, and we're going to act like this is a real interview to show you guys in live time what does it look like. All right, Katie, you ready?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Starting now. So hello, Katie. I'm Ravion Collins, and I'm the recruiter here at Oracle. I'll be conducting your interview today. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Ravion. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. We're almost to Friday. Can't complain. It's been a great week, but I've been excited to actually speak with you. I reviewed your resume and I saw your experience, and I was excited to see that you applied to one of our roles. So thank you for taking some time to join me today and speak with me about our opportunity. Before I get into the interview though, Katie, I want to go over a few details so you understand what to expect. So today, I have you interviewing for the program manager role on the diversity recruiting team. Just to give you some background of the role, just to make sure it's a good fit. This role is located in Austin, Texas, and starts on November 11th. Is that a good time frame for you and a good location for you?
Oh yeah, that's great.
Alrighty, perfect. So how I'm going to conduct the interview is I have two behavior interview questions here, and I'm gonna ask the questions. You might see me typing as you are speaking. Don't worry, it's just I'm taking notes. But feel free to ask me. I'm gonna state the question. Feel free to take a moment. If you miss anything, to ask me to repeat the question. I have no problem. We might have a little awkward moment of silence, but I just want to let you know it's because I'll be taking notes. All right.
Sounds good.
All right. So the first question I have for you is, what do you do when priorities change quickly? Give one example of when this happened.
Okay, great. So recently I had a change of priorities that happened quickly, where one of my coworkers needed support on a project. She was attaching source codes to job description links, so that way we can track applications and candidates. And I was currently processing a job description request when she reached out to me. I asked when she needed it by, and she said the end of the day so that she didn't have to stay late working on it. I said yes. I finished my job description request that I was currently working on when she reached out, and then I began her task that she assigned to me. After I checked my work to make sure it was accurate, I sent it over to her and then went on completing the rest of my non-timed requests.
Perfect. And so you were able to get that request over to her at a decent time or in the deadline that she needed?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All righty, perfect. Were there any challenges that came up throughout that time?
I think the only challenge was deciding if I should complete what I was working on and then start the task, or if I should start the task immediately and get it over to her as soon as possible. But she said the end of the day, so I prioritized based on that knowledge.
Okay, great, perfect. Now, the next question I have for you is, tell me about a time you made a mistake that set you back. What did you do?
Okay, so I try to estimate mistakes ahead of time. I try to minimize the risk, which means sometimes I overplan. But recently I was working on a job description. With this, I am to send a follow-up request, a report with suggestions from our tool, the changes I made to the document, and what the end result or the suggestions moving forward was. I include this with a Word document of the job description with the changes that I make, except I forgot to attach the Word document in my follow-up report. I thankfully went back and double checked my work because I didn't quite remember if I had attached it or not. And I had not attached it, so I composed a new email on the same thread and apologized for my oversight. I then attached the job description Word document and concluded with reaching out to me if they had questions or concerns. It took a few extra minutes out of my day, but it was worth it to have a completed report.
Great. And did anyone catch the mistake before you were able to fix it, or were you able to fix it before they seen it?
Thankfully, I did it right away, so they didn't catch it. But I have had it before where that's how I learned how to double check, because sometimes I have sent them and then they've reached out and asked for the follow-up report, and then I've had to attach the follow-up report and apologize.
Got you. All right. And did that cause any additional issues for yourself and your team?
I don't think so. If so, I left an open channel for them to reach out if they had questions or concerns.
Okay, great. That's great that you were able to catch the results. Sometimes we're not all so lucky.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, Katie. I have the responses. I noted down your responses, and next steps is I'm going to be reviewing this with my team. We're going to be looking to get back to you within the next 2 to 3 business days with next steps, and you can expect to receive that communication through a follow-up email. Do you have any questions for me?
What is your favorite thing about working for Oracle?
Yeah, one of my favorite things about working for the company is my ability to show up and do what I love, but also be my authentic self. I mean, nothing as a recruiter here, I feel like one of the best jobs is to be able to help others get an opportunity that they are seeking, especially with an amazing company. And I have the ability to help them, support them through that process. And also join one of our teams. So that's one of my favorite things about working here. But I can go on and on about the many things that I do love with Oracle.
Thank you,
Love
Ravion.
that
It was
question.
really great.
Thank you. And it was a pleasure speaking with you. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. You have my email, and you can definitely expect to hear from me from within the next 2 to 3 business days. Okay?
So thank you for your time.
No problem. All right. So that is an example of how to answer behavior interview questions. Katie broke down in great detail for each question what the situation was, as well as the task that she also had to do, the action that she took, and then the end result. She answered each using the STAR method, went into answer each part of the interview question, leaving not much to probe, which is what you want to do in your interview. You don't want to have the recruiter having to follow up with too many additional questions, because that means that you miss big parts of your story that they still are looking to receive, so that they can see how would you handle yourself in a similar situation if in the role with the organization. So I hope that was able to provide you some great insight into what interviewing, behavior interviewing will look like. You can go to the next slide. All right. So some of the key things to remember during your interview. First and foremost, I'm going to start at the very top because first impression is everything. Be on time. Remember when I stated earlier in the presentation, make sure you plan your interview day wisely. That is very important because the last thing you want to do is have your first impression be that you did not show up on time. That can leave a bad taste in the interviewer's mouth. And so make sure you are on time and starting there. Take notes. And when you know what, I'm gonna go back to being on time, whether that is in person or virtual or on Zoom. Make sure you're there a few. Being on time means you're early. Make sure you're there a few because you always want to give yourself enough time for if something happens, if traffic comes up, if an accident happens on your way to your interview, as well as testing out your technology, because you know in this technical world you just never know with internet connections and things. So making sure you test out those things in advance to make sure that you are you're starting your interview with your nerves calm, you know that you're there and you're ready and you're just waiting. So being early is being on time. Secondly, take notes. There's going to be a lot of information thrown at you on that first screen phone call. And even on every part of your interview, make sure to take notes. You might remember something after the interview that you want to follow up with them on. As well as you might want to review, you know, you want to write down different names of people who you might be interviewing with during the process. Start date, salary, anything that you want to look over, take a moment to process. So make sure you take down notes. It shows that you're truly interested and engaged. And don't assume anything. In an interview, don't assume. If you're unsure of something, just ask. You got the person right there in front of you, ask them the question, ask for clarity. When it comes to those behavior interview questions, if you're unsure on what is the question asking, take a moment and say, hey, can I have a moment to process this and think about my answer? That is the best thing a candidate could do in an interview versus starting off with just immediately answering the question and then getting the question wrong, not providing the right details or even telling the correct story that aligns to that question. So don't be, don't feel like you can't ask for clarity or ask a recruiter to repeat the question or ask them to break down the question, because that's the best thing you actually do to set yourself up for success. Take a moment to, like I said, process those questions as well. A recruiter is definitely going to understand. Be honest in your response. Make sure you're telling a true story because it's hard to remember one that didn't happen. It's easier to just be able to be honest and put your best self forward. And the last thing you want to do is get to the end of that interview and wish that you would have just stuck with being your authentic self and telling your true experience. You want to make sure that you are giving it your all. So being honest and being confident is definitely going to help you. Come with your confidence because you were chosen for an interview for a reason. They seen something on your resume that stuck out, and that is why you were selected for the interview. So there's no need to feel like you don't deserve to be there. So make sure that you bring your confidence and let it shine through. And talk about you. Talk in those behavior interview questions, unless the question itself is asking about, tell me about a time where you were working on a team or working with a group of people and you had to do something. Make sure you highlight your accolades, your accomplishments, your thing. Talk about yourself when providing those answers to the questions. They want to know what key part did you play at the organization or in your projects or in your schools, or volunteer. What key part did you play? What was your key role? They're trying to assess that. So be sure to talk highly of yourself. I know it's hard sometimes, we forget, but in those moments, definitely talk highly of yourself and take your time. Knowing that if the interview is an hour long or 45 minutes or 30 minutes long, be sure to take your time. Of course, you keep your eye on the clock, but don't rush yourself where you might forget some important information and then at the end of the interview or when it's over, second guess how you did. Know the company and know the job. Can't stress this enough. You do not want to show up to an interview and be in your interview saying, hey, what does this job do again? I can tell you right now, you probably already took yourself out of the process if you ask a question like that, because it just shows that you're probably not as serious as other candidates who are going to come prepared, who have done their research, who have looked over the job description, and are just eager to be selected for the opportunity for the company. So remembering these things during your interview will definitely help you get hopefully a desired outcome of what you are looking for. Next slide. And then the interview post follow-up. This is a very important step. I've literally, as a recruiter, I've seen offers go out just because someone's follow-up. So if you don't think that a follow-up is needed, it is. Sometimes it definitely is, will make or break an interview. So definitely, it only takes a few extra minutes, but it's definitely going to make you memorable and make you stand out because not everyone does it. But remembering when you do an interview post follow-up, I want to talk about the do's and the don'ts. So when you do a post follow-up, remember to introduce yourself clearly so the hiring manager knows which applicant you are. They're interviewing multiple candidates, so you want to make sure that you put something in your post follow-up communication that triggers their memory. This triggers their conversation, your interview. Like, it's like, hey, if you guys took a moment to talk about where you grew up at, or you took a moment to talk about your hobbies, mention that in the interview. Mention, oh, I love hearing about how you travel to Maine or something like that. They're gonna be like, oh, I remember having that conversation, because each interview is different. Emphasize your positive experience during the interview and thank them for their time. So make sure you include if you had a great time, because if you didn't, no need to lie, but make sure you include, hey, it was an absolute pleasure speaking with you. I enjoyed our conversation, learning about the role, the company, and it just further excited me to want to join your team. Definitely make it eager, bring your energy in that post follow up to let them know, like, I am very interested in being, a part of the organization. And politely ask for updates about the application process. You definitely deserve to know what's gonna go on, how is it going to happen, what's the timeline. So definitely be sure to ask that so you can have some clarity on your end. But let's get to the don'ts. Don't complain about the length of the application process. You want to make sure if in your post follow up, you don't want to add too much negative, but you definitely want to give a clear, honest review and definitely send an honest communication about your experience, because you do have that right. It's not all about just the employer, it's about your experience as well. And you do want to provide great feedback so that the employer can improve if their experience was not the greatest for you. So you're able to provide that, but one thing, don't start off with complaining about the length of the application process. Asking directly if they want to hire you. If they gave you a timeline, as I did with Katie when I was speaking with her, letting her know 2 to 3 business days, I'll be following up with you through email. If it just happens to be 5 days go by, I would expect an email from Katie saying, hey, you told me 2 to 3 business days and I have not received a communication. Could you provide me any response or any updates on my interview? That is totally valid from Katie's end. But saying, hey, like, what's going on? Are you going to hire me? That's not probably going to end well for you. So being mindful of the tone in the follow up, but also any feedback that you need to give, just being mindful that having it in a professional tone. Questioning why they haven't made a decision yet is another don't. There's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes, and trust me, they want to make sure that they are selecting the correct candidate and doing it in a timely manner. That is just one of the things that most companies want to do, and providing a great experience. So trust me, they know if they have interviewed you, they're going to give you, hopefully they're going to give you a response either way. And like I said, you and asking further questions like, hi, I'm just following up to see if there's any update, but questioning why they haven't made a decision yet is not going to leave a good taste as well. And bringing up other candidates or asking about how the other interviews went. You want to focus on your interview and your interview only. Follow up only discussing your interview and how you're doing, how you did. And if you have any questions, or if they have any questions for you that will help them make the decision easier, is what you want to focus on, not other candidates. And forgetting to identify yourself on the phone or through email is what you don't want to do. Like I said, and hiring managers and recruiters interview a lot of people for a job. So you definitely want to make sure that you are introducing yourself and reminding them who you are, no matter how memorable you think your interview was. They are talking to tons of candidates every day. So just making sure that you're making it easier for them to remember you. Next slide. And just remember, interviewing, I know it's exciting and I know it's nerve-wracking at the same time, but just know that you got this. Going in with your confidence, going in with a positive attitude is always going to be your best bet, because no matter the outcome, well, which way it goes, if you know that you gave it your all, if you know that you practiced, if you know that you were honest, you were confident, you are your authentic self, you're going to be comfortable and you should be okay with the outcome no matter what it is, because you know that you left nothing on the table. So I always say, when you give it your all, you know at the end of the day, the outcome is the outcome and you're okay with whatever that outcome is because you gave it your all. So you know your story, make sure you're telling your story, pace yourself, dress to impress. Remember, first impression is everything. And remember, it's your time to shine. It is about you for those 30 minutes to an hour, however long you have that interviewer for, and make it count. You have what it, just know that you have what it takes. They would have not selected you for the interview if you didn't meet the qualifications and they didn't see something that they wanted. And remember to breathe. Remember that you have been selected for a reason. Confidence is key, and just believe in yourself. If you believe in yourself, they will believe in you and that you are the best candidate for the job, and you will most likely get the desired outcome. So just knowing, remembering those things are key. And you go to the next slide. Now I'm going to pass it to Melissa to talk about some of our opportunities that we have.
All right. I'm inspired by you, Ray. I'm thinking I'm probably not going to interview anytime soon, which is a good thing because I really like my job. But anyway, I'm super inspired by everything you said. And also, folks, please do put questions in the chat for Ray or Katie or myself. But real quick, we are hiring. Oracle is hiring. For those of you who are graduates, there's plenty of opportunities for software developers. There's UX design. There's also non-tech as well. And you can go to our career site. But also, Ray will show you how to register to stay in touch with us. And all of these roles are posted with TAA as well. And so there's lots of ways to apply with us. You can always go to oracle.com careers as well. But yeah, we're hiring right now, and we're excited to kick off the campus season and get interviews underway. So now that you've been through the session, you'll do great. If you are a postgraduate with work experience, we have those roles as well. So, or again, oracle.com careers, but we can stay in touch with you.
Thanks, Melissa.
Back to you, Ray.
Yes. And to get ready to close us out, some great resources that I want you guys to take with you. As Melissa stated, we are hiring, so definitely take a moment to visit our career website where you can see all of our open roles right now that recruiters are actively recruiting for. Me and my team are interviewing, so get there today, ASAP. The sooner the better, because like I said, we are actively interviewing as of now. That link right there will take you to our career website. But also remember to practice, practice, and practice. Keep practicing. You can never practice enough when it comes to interviewing. Even the best still practice. They still do their research on companies that they're applying to, that they're interviewing for. They're still making sure that they're bringing their A game. They're still making sure that they are knowing exactly what they are applying to, reading them job descriptions, practicing questions, looking up sample questions. So you can never be too knowledgeable when it comes to interviewing. So make sure you practice, practice, practice. Also, utilize LinkedIn for additional interview tips. LinkedIn is a great place place that has many different blogs on providing different resources on where you can go to get some tips and tricks on interviewing, even resume writing, or just how to present yourself, networking, you name it, LinkedIn has it. But also, Oracle career, we have here at Oracle, we post career blogs, which I want you all to take down that link as well, where we are always posting different articles providing great information on how you can definitely ace interviews, career fairs, resume writing. So we're always, our marketing team is great with posting different blogs that will help candidates or anyone who is interested in getting into Oracle or any other employer on how to be successful on their journey. So make sure you take down those links as well. And then the last is, I know we have Q&A, but I'm going to have you skip right past that, Melissa, and go to and while we're going to leave it here while you guys have any questions that you might want to ask. I would love to answer whatever questions that you might have when it comes to interview preparation or anything in regards to the interview process. This code right here, this QR code, definitely use this to register. Let us know that you were here with us, but also I'll be able to follow up with you all with additional resources and this information that I provided you today, as well as be able to reach out to you, make sure that you applied. If you have any questions for me, you'll be able to get my email as well. So definitely use that QR code to register. Let us know you were here so we can follow up with you and hopefully make you a part of our team. Does anyone have any questions?
We do have some questions. So I'm going to start us off. The first question we have is, do you recommend that a candidate research their interviewer?
Yes, I do. LinkedIn, if you have a name, if you have been scheduled for an interview by any company and they provide you with the name, I did it. Go on LinkedIn, go find them, go look at their background, because it's a great conversation starter. For one thing, especially if you're nervous, it's going to help you just level set in the beginning. Like, hey, like, how are you, Melissa? I see that you lived in Seattle. I found you on LinkedIn, and like, that's a city that I always wanted to visit. Can you tell me about that? But prior to the interview even starting, you're talking about them, because guess what? Interviewers, they're always, they interview a lot, and I can tell you it's not as exciting as people think it is. Like, we hope each interview is the last one. Like, we hope that's the candidate. So if you can make it where you stand out, where you are turning that table around to that interviewer and having them talk about themselves a little bit, that excites them, because people love to talk about themselves, right? But also letting them know that you did your research on them. That's always going to stick out. So it's always going to help get the conversation started before you get into the serious stuff. Like, all right, now let's jump into your resume. Now there goes the nerves again, right? Like, so definitely research your interview. That's what LinkedIn is for. Connect with them on LinkedIn. You can even send them a note. Hey, got an interview with you next week. Looking forward to it. Can't wait to meet you. Simple as that.
Awesome. Our next question states, if I'm in an interview and I have done all the prep but freeze in a moment from anxiety, how do you recommend handling that?
I'm sorry, I had missed it went out a little bit for me. Can you repeat the question?
Sure, absolutely. The question states, if I'm in an interview and have done all the prep but freeze in a moment of anxiety, how would you recommend I handle that?
Yeah, I would say if you have anxiety, you feel that in the middle of the conversation, I would take a moment and ask the interviewer, hey, I'm sorry, my nerves are kicking in. Like, can I take just a moment? Any interview is going to understand that. If you try to push through that and stumble over every question, they're going to just be like, this person wasn't prepared. This person did not care. And they're going to chop it up as like they're not the one. Versus if you're honest with them, because they're human too. You got to remember, they are human on the other side of the table. They have anxiety. They get nerves about things. They're going to be like, oh, okay, let's take a moment. Let's talk. Like, let me help you. I've done that personally as a recruiter. I've seen candidates get nervous, and I know where those nerves are coming from. It's coming from a place that you really want the job. You really want to be selected. So you want to put your best self forward, and you're nervous. Your mind is going crazy. So as a great recruiters can recognize that, and they're going to take a moment to stop the interview and probably have some small conversation and talk about, some side conversation like, oh, so what's the weather like? And until they see that candidate has calmed down. So Phil, also, you take the moment as a candidate if you know your anxiety or your nerves is up, and just be honest and say, hey, I'm just nervous because I'm so excited. So I just want to take a moment to just like breathe for a second before I start answering these questions. And they're going to be like, oh, most definitely. I will respect that, and any other recruiter will respect that, over someone just trying to push through that. And then we have to accept that that's their best. And we have to make our decision off of that.
Great. Our next question states, does Oracle utilize interviews with a panel of interviewers? How many do you utilize, and how many do you think is maybe too many? And how would you recommend interviewees best navigate a panel?
Yeah, so in our campus space, for instance, our super day and our assessment days, those interviews are quite large. They are about, for instance, our super days have about 40 other candidates, a max of 40 candidates on there who have applied to that position, who's also interviewing that position. And they're not there to compete with each other. We're not making this like, battle of this all out war. Whoever comes out will get the job. That's not what we're doing. Like, it's more like we are trying to see, especially in a virtual environment, we're trying to see your teamwork skills. How do you operate in a team? But also is given the opportunity for managers to assess that talent in a group setting. You do have multiple managers on there as well as other people from the team who will be there, going into depth about the role, the tasks, the positions, and things like that. And then they will be sitting back, they'll be asking questions because there is like breakout rooms. In regards to the panels, we don't really so much do panel interviews, but we do group interviews where our super days, our assessment days, our codings are kind of set up in that way where you are interviewing with a group of people. We try to keep it, as simple as possible for you and easy as possible. But there is a such thing as too many people interviewing a candidate. We hope that we are not one of those companies who have like missed that mark, but that is not us.
Got it. Our next question states, if you're interested in a job title that you have not necessarily had, but believe your experience in prior could help with from other roles that have required these skills, what can you do to help you land that interview in the first place?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love that question because for one thing, you should always be trying to level up. You're told, and not, if you look at a job description, you see every single qualification you apply for, that means you're overqualified. It means that you've already probably mastered that job. And if that's the job that you want, like you just want to stay at that level, that's perfectly fine. Not everybody wants to climb, and that's perfectly fine. So apply to that. But if you're someone who's you're looking for your next challenge. If you go through a job description and you check off every single task or qualification that they're like, I got it, I got it, I got it, you're overqualified. But if you look at a job description where you're like, I got that, I have that, I don't have that, but and I don't have that, but that's where I'm trying to get, then start looking into ways. It might be a certification. Reach out to someone. LinkedIn, once again, is going to be another powerful tool, or someone at a company that you already work with. Ask them to mentor you. Ask them to advise you. You don't have to go on this journey alone. In regards to climbing or getting where you want to be professionally. But look at different tasks. It might be projects that you can take on at the company that you're at to get those skills. It might be different volunteer work that you can take on to get that experience that you can put on your resume. So it's not necessarily where you will never get there because you don't have the job title, or you didn't do that those actual tasks at the company you are. But also get a mentor. They will help you, but reach out to people who do have that job title and ask them, how did you get to where you're at from where I'm at? Or any advice, because sometimes you can't figure it out on your own, and they will help.
All right, and in the interest of time, I think this will be our last question. But the next question says, how long is too long for an answer to interviewer's question? Is there a rule of thumb?
How long? As long as you're not filling the question with fluff. And when I say fluff, that's information that has nothing to do with the question that is have been answered. So there's not so much a time frame. I can't say, hey, 10 minutes is too long, because if you're telling the story and providing all of the accurate details that's needed to tell that story in a clear manner, where that recruiter has the information of like, wow, that is a great answer to this question, then it took 10 minutes. Like, but also being mindful of, if you know you have, if the interview is 45 minutes, we're not going to spend 20 minutes on each question. So you're going to have to use your best judgment when choosing the examples that you're going to use for the questions that are being asked to you. So I would say, anything between 5 and 8 to 10 minutes at the max for a question, because there's usually about 3 or 4 interview questions. So anywhere between that 5 to 10 minute mark should be good. As long as you're getting those details in there, telling the story, painting that picture, you're golden.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much to the Oracle team for this amazing presentation, and to everyone who attended today and your questions. If you have any additional questions that come up, you can always feel free to reach us at support@tourette.org. Once the webinar is closed, you will receive a survey regarding this presentation, and we would appreciate if you fill it out. You will also receive a follow-up email within 24 to 48 hours to view the recording of this webinar, and it will be uploaded to our YouTube channel as well for your viewing. On behalf of the TAA, thank you again for your attendance, and thank you again, Oracle, for an amazing presentation.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.